I will kick us off by giving a presentation overview just of the Kinship Navigator and then our Lunch and Learn series, and then turn it over to Daniel to have a conversation about community dispute resolution centers. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So just as a brief overview, our Lunch and Learn series, I think most people on this call are very familiar with it. Sponsored by the New York State Kin Care Coalition, the New York State Kinship Navigator. We give a 30-minute presentation every month on a topic of interest for those that are kinship caregivers or working with kinship caregivers. You can see an overview of all of our past Lunch and Learns right on the Kinship Navigator YouTube page. Those are recorded, just as this one will be recorded. In the past, we've heard information from OMH, from Center for Elder Law and Justice, school administrators. We've been doing these for about 2 years, so there's really a couple of dozen videos right on the Navigator YouTube page. And next month, just as a heads up, we will be joined by Schuyler Center for Analysis and Advocacy to discuss kinship policy. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Rae Glaser. I'm the director of the New York State Kinship Navigator program. I'm going to give a really brief overview of the Navigator. We are information, referral, and education for kinship caregivers all across the state, for potential caregivers, current caregivers, regardless of legal status, for professionals working with caregivers. We partner with agencies all across the state. We are information, so we have information on financial assistance, legal advocacy, a whole bunch of other information for kinship caregivers, education, tax credits, enrolling a child into school, birth certificates, official documents, you name it, we probably have it. Our helpline is open Monday through Friday, 10 to 4. Right there's our phone number, and our website's available. Information and referral, as I said, legal fact sheets. We have county resources right on our website. We have a clickable map of New York State where you can click on your county and find out what information is available to you. Our helpline, Monday through Friday, 10 to 4. We can do intakes in 37 different languages. We do also have an online chat Monday through 10 to 4, and you can email us as well. We provide referrals to local kinship services, permanency resource centers, legal agencies, support groups, other supportive services that caregivers or youth may need across the state. In terms of education, we do statewide presentations. If your agency is interested in the Kinship 101, financial assistance, kinship legal options, feel free to email us. We'll set up a presentation. We have our online video archive for Lunch and Learns, as well as informational videos on financial assistance steps and legal options. And we also co-lead the Kin Care Coalition for Legislative Education. We work every single year with a lot of kinship partners in order to develop policy. If you are interested in policy or the budget, please feel free to email us. We will connect you with the Kin Care Coalition that meets once a month. In terms of advocacy, that's also an arm for the Kin Care Coalition, and we also offer case-by-case advocacy for caregivers that may be struggling with financial assistance or legal options. There's a quick snapshot of our website. You can see right here our clickable map that you can click on every county. We also have information on what's happening in the world of kinship, what learning opportunities are available, how to sign up for our newsletter. Everything's right on our website. Two other things for the Kinship Navigator I want to mention briefly are our virtual case management program. We are virtual in nature, so our helpline serves all 62 counties. But in an additional 10 counties, we provide kinship virtual case management. And now that I'm looking at the slide, it's a little bit old. So in our follow-ups, I will make sure that everybody has the updated counties. Sorry about that. Where we can provide up to 6 months of virtual case management for kinship caregivers. You don't have to do anything special. Just give us a call. If you are from one of our virtual case management counties, we will connect you with a kinship case manager. The last thing I want to mention briefly is our permission to contact form. It's right on our homepage. If you are a professional working with kinship caregivers, feel free to download that. What it does is on the front, it gives information very briefly on what the Kinship Navigator does. And then on the back, acts as a release form so you can sign with your client, email or fax it to the Navigator, and we will give that client a call within the next 2 business days. This has been designed really to just take the onus off of a caregiver who might be struggling with a lot on their plate and may or may not make a phone call. So we've had really good success with this permission to contact form. We've worked with local departments of social services, different human services agencies. So if you're working with kinship caregivers, feel free to download that. We can send you copies, anything in order to facilitate getting those caregivers in the front door so that they can have information on the services available to them. At this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel Koss to talk a little bit about alternative dispute resolution. Daniel's going to share a screen with us, and I'm going to have him take it right away. So hopefully our technology will not fail us. Daniel, right on to you.
Thank you so much, Rae. I'm just going to double check that you can see my screen right now.
You can see your screen. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Rae. When you reached out and you provided us the opportunity to talk about one of the best kept secrets here in New York, the New York State Community Dispute Resolution Centers, we were thrilled because you were particularly interested in how our services can help folks who may not necessarily want to start a court engagement or file a case in court, but would like to have other alternatives for resolving some of the issues that they might be wanting to address in their lives. And so while our programs are very much embedded in the courts, and I'll tell you about that, about half the work we do statewide is for folks who are exactly in that situation where they have something that's going on that they'd like help with, but they don't necessarily want to involve the courts quite yet. And so let me share a little bit about our network of nonprofits. The Community Dispute Resolution Centers program was established by the Unified Court System more than 40 years ago now, back in 1981. And they serve all 62 counties. We have 20 nonprofit partners throughout the state, and you can see that map down there kind of gives you a sense that some serve as few as one county and some as many as 8. And what we offer, kind of the heart of what we offer, is you consider conflict resolution services. And I'll share more about what that actually means, but that is what we do. We help people talk about things that are important in their lives. We help people make decisions together, and we use some specific processes that help us do that. Oops. All of our services are ADA accessible. They're available in person or online, depending on what people prefer. And what I'd like to encourage before I continue telling you about the CDRCs and how they might be a resource for you as a kinship caregiver or as someone who is supporting caregivers, just want to encourage folks to use the chat or the Q&A function to drop in any questions. Rae will be monitoring that and can let me know if there's questions. I love getting questions along the way. So if there's something you heard me say a little bit about that you want to hear more about, just put that in the chat and I'll be happy to share more.
Thanks for that reminder, Daniel. We will be addressing the answers in real time. So I'm watching the chat as Daniel gives his overview and presentation. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and Rae, just interrupt me. We don't have to save them till the end. It's great when they come up.
Yep.
Before I get much further, the thing I really want to emphasize that is so wonderful about these services is that they're free or very low cost. Because of the court system's funding, these services can be availed by anyone, whether or not they're involved in the courts. They can be accessed regardless of what the topic or issues that people need to talk about is. So these are free services, and accessing these services is completely confidential. The court system doesn't know that you've used them. Nobody can get that information. And if you were to end up in court on that same matter, for instance, what you talked about and what you did would be completely in confidence and would not be shared with anyone at the courts. So these are free, confidential services that are Hopefully you'll see a great tool for folks in a wide range of situations. So just to give you a sense of how significant an impact our CDRCs, that's what we call them, Community Dispute Resolution Centers, are throughout the state, this is our last full fiscal year, a 12-month period. We served in more than 21,000 cases throughout the state and helped more than 50,000 people. What's really exciting about the work that we do is when you look at when people do sit down and talk to each other, they try to come up with common understandings and try to make decisions. 78% of our cases that go to a mediation result in an agreement. That means people are walking away feeling they've made good decisions about the future. They can move on and move past the issues that they were facing. And our services are fast. Most cases can be scheduled for a mediation in 2 weeks' time, and our average case is opened and closed within a month. I'll tell you a little bit more about what clients have to say about our services after they participate, but we utilize a combination of professional staff and volunteers in the community to provide these services. Okay, so what are the situations that you can imagine utilizing a CDRC for? And at this moment, before I go into each one of these areas, I do want to make one differentiating factor. In addition to CDRCs, the courts offer mediation to anyone who has a case in court related to child permanency, meaning related to a child who has been removed from a parent's custody. And so many caregivers or folks that you support have a case that is under the court's jurisdiction. And if there is ever a conflict or a disagreement among the adults in that case, meaning you as a caregiver have a conflict with a caseworker or with the biological parent or with another relative, the attorney that you have or an attorney for the child who's involved in the case, if any of the adults have a conflict, all you have to do is ask the judge that you'd like to request permanency mediation. And there's a statewide program that is very well equipped and does hundreds of cases a year to support you while the case is under the court's supervision. I'll be talking about things that have to do with either situations where the caregiving is happening and there is no active case in family court, or the other issues that a family might be facing that have nothing to do with the permanency matter at court. So I really want to just draw that distinction. So if you are in court currently under the court supervision case has conflict among the adults, ask your judge or the court attorney to utilize mediation. For everything else, the CDRCs are here for you. So I hope that distinction makes sense. And perhaps down the road, we could have someone talk from our child permanency program about the services they provide. Either way, they're free. Okay, so what are the types of situations where we see New Yorkers around the state using their CDRC? And I've chosen particular ones that might be topical to caregivers. One of the most common things that we think can be helpful for kinship caregivers is what we call a type of family mediation called parent-child mediation. It's if you are overseeing, you have in your house a teenager who's going through high school or a child who's going through any stage of development, and you're noticing that there's conflict between you and them. Maybe it's around things like curfew or schoolwork. Maybe it's around other things that are happening in the family. We regularly mediate cases where a parent and child or parents and children get together and talk about what is going on in the house and how they can be just in greater sense of community and connection with each other, and how they can make decisions about things that are causing the conflicts. When it relates to something like housing, there are a lot of things that kinship caregivers may have going on with their housing. Perhaps they're in rental housing and there's a conflict with a landlord. Perhaps there's an issue around rent or repairs, or maybe a security deposit that has been a source of disagreement after someone has left an apartment. All those housing related issues, they have nothing to do with the child permanency case. Those are all things that we regularly mediate and have a great track record of helping people resolve. Additionally, whether you're in an apartment or in a home, you may have a conflict with your neighbors. Maybe there's, if you're in an urban area, there could be noise issues, upstairs neighbor or next door neighbor. Perhaps there are questions around a boundary and someone putting up a shed or cutting limbs off your tree or something of that nature. Those are things that we regularly also mediate. So that's in the housing realm. And so we definitely want to make sure our young people are living in safe, supportive homes and want to do anything we can to support you if you have conflict in that area. Another area is what we might broadly call the youth or school area. We have partnerships with schools across the state and with the New York State Department of Education. And if you as a parent have a conflict with the school, perhaps it is about placement in classes or disciplinary issues at schools. If you have a conflict with another adult at the school, be it a teacher or administrator, we can mediate those kinds of disputes. If the child that you have that you're parenting is missing school and having trouble getting to school on time or going to school regularly, and there's an attendance issue, we work with schools and parents and young people, especially if they're teens, to come up with plans around how to build positive attendance habits. So that's another issue that is pretty common among young people in schools. And finally, if the young person that you are parenting has intellectual or developmental disability, and maybe they have an IEP at school, or you'd like for them to have more services, or the school is suggesting that they get a diagnosis and are tested, and you're not sure about that. Those issues around special education and access to services and eligibility for services, those are issues that can also be mediated. So, Rae, I'm going to pause for a moment and just double check and see if there have been any questions that have come up so far.
Not so far, and I think it's because you're super clear. Oh, well, now we have one question. Somebody was just waiting for the pause. Are you able to mediate situations in which the school contests the child being able to attend in that district?
It will depend on the circumstances. Sometimes schools are making those decisions for different reasons, but that is absolutely something that you could contact your local community dispute resolution center. Chances are they've worked with that school on other things, and perhaps they can inspire the school to sit down and have a conversation, if for no other reason that everyone can understand the rationale and the decision that the school is making. I want you to know we're not like an appeals process. You're not coming to us and we make a decision. Our job is to get people together to talk about things so they understand better and perhaps can work together to come up with other ideas. So that could definitely be a topic.
Yeah, and I will add to, when it comes to education law, that would be something that we would probably pursue from another avenue if we got to a standstill. In kinship care, we're looking at the ability to enroll the children into school if it can be proved that the children reside with the caregiver. So there are other avenues that we can take a look at first, just to make sure, first of all, that they're following education law, and we can enroll student support services in that. But if we're to a standstill, we might give you a call. We do have another question coming in. Are your services strictly virtual?
No, our services are available everywhere virtually and also in person. We do have about 56 offices around the state, so not quite every county, but most, the vast majority. And we do a lot of work in person. We try to schedule all of our work cases at times that are convenient for you. So often that means people are mediating in the evening after work, during lunchtime hours, on the weekends even. So we want people to be able to give their full attention to what's important to them to talk about, and we'll schedule around people's calendars.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, great. Just let me know as more questions come up here.
I promise there were no questions until you paused.
I'm glad I asked. I'm glad I asked. So the final kind of main bucket that I'll talk about today is our civil cases, meaning cases that could be resolved and they involve an issue of money. So a very common example, you might think of them as like a small claims case, for instance. It could be even larger than a small claims case. But a case where someone believes that someone owes someone money. A common example might be you've hired a contractor to do a repair on your roof or a renovation in your bathroom or whatever it might be. Sometimes things don't go as they're planned. They take longer, or they aren't done to the level of quality that one expected. And so sometimes people find themselves in small claims court trying to recoup some of their money. This could be all sorts of different types of dispute where you might someone might be suing someone for a certain amount of money. We mediate in so many city and town and village courts around the state. And what I tell folks is you don't have to file to try mediation. It's likely that you will try mediation if you end up in court, but you can do this without the filing fee, and you could resolve this potentially without going to court. So just a wide range of types of situations between consumers and merchants and people who provide services and those sort of things. Additionally, unpaid bills can sometimes be a matter that people mediate. So those are some of the common types of situations that people utilize our services with. We do a great deal of parenting plan mediations. I'm not going to talk so much about those, only because if your case is under the court's jurisdiction, chances are, that wouldn't be relevant. However, if you're doing kinship caregiving and in a less formalized way, without the court's involvement, if there are other relatives, perhaps another set of grandparents or other relatives who would like to work together to have a schedule with you about who can see children when, that is absolutely something we do a great deal of mediation around. So, as I had mentioned at the beginning, we do a lot of work from the courts. So about half of those 20,000 cases that I mentioned come from the various courts around the state, everything from your city courts who handle the small claims types of matters, family courts who you might be familiar with, to Supreme and surrogates case courts that handle things like divorces or probate or estates when someone passes away. And then half of our cases come from what we call the community, and that could be you. That could be you as a self-referral, someone who just looks up, and I'll show you at the end how you can locate your local CDRC. So someone who just goes online and finds them or picks up the phone and calls them. But we also have referral relationships with local departments of social services, other county agencies, schools and law enforcement. So CDRCs do support the work of many other local agencies. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, kind of like, well, how are you, what do you do to help people talk? And what do you do to help people make decisions together? And we really have what I would consider 3 sets of core processes or approaches to helping. The most common way we help and have helped for the last 40 years plus is through mediation. Sometimes folks confuse mediation with arbitration, and I want to get that out the way immediately to say, we do not make decisions for you. We don't act as judges. We don't listen to people and then decide for them what they should do. Everything you do in mediation is up to you. What you talk about, how you want to talk about it, what you want to decide, or whether you want to make decisions together, all of that is in your control. And when you mediate, you don't give up the right to do anything else in the future. So you can try mediation, and if it doesn't work, you can go to court. You never lose the right to pursue any other way of addressing the conflict. And I had mentioned it is confidential. What you can expect if you called your mediation center is that they would talk to you. They would listen to you about your situation. They would try to understand what is going on, what you think you might want to achieve in mediation. And then they would work with you to see if the other party would be willing to give it a try. Again, our services are voluntary. We don't make people show up to a session. And so if both parties agree, what a mediator does is lets everyone talk together, lets them understand where they're coming from, both what they agree on and what they don't agree on. Helps them come up with an agenda so that they can talk about things in a focused way. If things get hot or emotional, mediators have skills that help people de-escalate and better understand each other through that process. And if people want to, we can write agreements. We can write a written agreement, and sometimes those agreements can also even be filed and ordered through a court. So the mediation process, you decide what to talk about, how to talk about, and whether you want to make plans together. Sometimes it happens, though, that not everyone agrees that they want to mediate. And we do offer something called conflict coaching. It's kind of like, a personal coach, but about this conflict situation. And so this is a one-on-one interaction where a coach will have you talk about the situation. They'll ask you specific questions. And what they're trying to do is help you understand the situation and what is so challenging, particularly about it. They'll also help you create an action plan, what you might want to do to improve how you cope with the situation, or something you want to try to do to make the situation better. And they will practice with you so that you can enact that strategy and that game plan with them. So we're really excited to be offering conflict coaching statewide now. Because it happens often that both parties don't want to talk right away. It's also great preparation if you do end up mediating. And the last process I'll mention is what we call circles. Circles are a structured way for people who have something in common to build community and get to know each other and talk together. So, for instance, you would find it helpful to be in a circle with other people who are kinship caregivers, who share the common challenges and issues that are happening for you. That is something that our mediation centers have a lot of skillfulness in helping to bring a group of people together who have something in common and give them a meaningful way to get to know each other and talk about those things that are really important to them. Likewise, maybe there could be a circle of children who are separated from their biological parents and are, working with, living with a relative, and perhaps they have things they'd like to talk about among themselves that they have in common, and that could build relationships and support systems for them. I'll give you an example of something that's been happening kind of recently because of current events. We've been working with affinity groups, meaning groups that have something in common, this fall, as people have been reacting to various world events, and how they have been impacted by those world events, particularly the issues happening in the Middle East. So we have had affinity groups of folks who are have a Jewish background and are concerned about anti-Semitism in their communities. And we've had hosted affinity groups of folks who are from the Middle East, or perhaps they're Muslim, and they too are impacted by Islamophobia in their communities. And they want to talk together and have a supportive community to feel that support and to make plans together. So circles are a really powerful way for folks to feel less isolated, more connected, and to get support on things that are difficult for them.
Daniel, thank you so much. I hate to cut you off. We're running just over 12:30. I want to let you finish up, but we might need to run the next minute or two. You've got a lot of great information for us. I should have given you longer to present.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry I went over. I will wrap this up in the next minute. You can take a look at what's on here. When people go to mediation, whether or not they come up with an agreement, they have so many positive things to say. And I just love the fact that 90% of people, or 89% of people, whether or not they came up with an agreement, would recommend mediation to others. That tells me that they like the experience, even if it didn't resolve the situation. They think it was neutral and fair, and that the mediators listened to them. So this is very heartening for us. It tells us that people really do value this process and get a lot out of it. And finally, if you want to find the CDRC in your county or your area, the website is up on the screen. There's a alphabetical county listing. You just click on the county and you will see the name of the CDRC in your area. So I'm sorry, Ray, that I went over, but I hope this has been helpful, and I hope folks can find the help that they need if this is something they think that would help.
Absolutely. I was glad that you went over, because it was a lot of good information. I just wanted to be cognizant of your time and everybody else's time. I want to thank you to everybody for attending today. Feel free, Daniel, if you've got a couple more minutes, I certainly do. If you've got some questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. You do have contact information for me if you've got any follow-up questions. And as Daniel said in the beginning of the session, we will be looking to engage this topic in the future with specific focus on child permanency. So I think this is really useful, and I actually learned a lot too. So thank you again, Daniel, for joining us, and thanks to everybody. We will see you in February. Recording and slides from this presentation will be made available in the next day, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, we do have another question coming in. Do all persons wanting CDRC services have to reside in New York State? That's a great question.
No, only if one person, all it's required is that one of the parties is in New York State. So if the others live elsewhere and we can establish now a video mediation, that's something we do pretty regularly.
Perfect.
If none of the people are in the state of New York, you're thinking perhaps of a friend or a colleague somewhere, there are community mediation centers outside of New York State as well. But again, as long as one person here is in a New York City resident, then you can access the services.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you again. And if we have any follow-up questions, I'll send them on your way.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yep. Have a great day, everybody.